disappointing. We thought I thought our effort and endeavour, and I know I've used that word a few times, but the first half we just didn't come to play. We spoke all week about closing down Glenorchy, and I think they the first quarter against the win they had 25 uncontested marks, or plus 25 uncontested marks. So we just with them to move the ball, switch and shift the play, and they scored a couple of goals into the win. Which is probably double their score really. If you kick 2 goals in the win, it's more like 4 or 5. So didn't get off to the greatest start, and used we used the win that we had to our advantage. Second quarter they won the ball at contest, and again they were able to shift the ball and use the win to their momentum, to gain momentum, and then I think it's really hard to stop momentum in conditions like that, and they had it for long periods of time in the first half. But look, full credit to them. I thought they came out and they really hunted us. We knew they were coming, and we didn't handle it. To tell you the honest truth. So look, sometimes when you're winning, it's never as good as what you think it is, and when you lose, sometimes you start to stress, but it's never as bad as what it is. So look, we'll review the tape really hard and figure out what went wrong today. We think we've got a relatively good idea about that. But to the boys' credit, after half time, we put them on at half time to sort of really respond, and I thought our effort went up. I think we kicked 0-6 in the last half to their 2-4. So same amount of scoring shots, but look, the first half was diabolical really. Allowing the uncontested marks when we had the breeze, and then they smashed us around the ball and got the ball moving forward. And I thought their ball use and their ability to hunt the ball today was really, really good. It's probably nearly the best we've seen this year. So and they've showed that when they get their game up and going, that they can really challenge teams. So we'll learn a bit from today. But as I said, we've got beaten. We'll cop it on the chin, we'll own it, and we'll move on to next week.
Jake Cox looked to be missing in action for the second half.
Yeah, he did. Hurt his ankle in the first quarter. I think he did it. So look, we'll obviously do the right thing tonight and tomorrow, and we'll send him off for a bit of a scan. We don't think it's too major, he's obviously one of the competition's best players. Extremely important for us. So if he's not right next week, we'll give him the week off. We just don't know where he's at, but he's got a bit of an ankle, so we'll see how it comes up.
Brody Jones across half-back was probably one of the better players today.
Yeah, he was. We set Brody up across half-back last week, and defensively I thought he was really sound last week, saved us a few times. Today again, he's the captain, puts his body on the line. I thought he set up well defensively, but got a fair bit of the ball as well. So it was something we probably just tried for the first couple of weeks to, I suppose, just to integrate him back into playing. Probably won't play that role next week, but look, it's nice to know that we can put him down there and he can have an impact. He was by far our best player today and led from the front.
Said before, never as good as it seems, probably never as bad as it seems either. Knocked off a couple of real heavyweights in the last fortnight. Yeah. Is it just one of those things that you were going to have a bad day at some point and happened to be today?
Yeah, maybe. Look, you can't accept those bad days. Look, I thought our fight in the first half was really poor. It hasn't been our brand. I think that's the one thing that has been a real positive for us this year is being that when we're challenged, we just keep fighting and grinding. They got momentum in the second quarter and we just couldn't stop. Well, we couldn't stop them. So that was disappointing. But as I said, look, we probably had a bad day today. Well, we did have a bad day. But we just need to move on. But I think it's important for the group to take ownership of that. And they will, because they've got some good character, and I'm sure we'll come out really hunting the Tigers next week and bounce back.
Yeah, you have to enjoy days like that where you take on really good opposition and you just play really good footy on both sides of the ball, but particularly our defensive side and our pressure and our contest work was really good. And we feel when we do that well that we're as good as anybody. Probably the last Clarence game showed us a few things as to why we weren't doing it quite consistently enough, and some stuff we started working on from that point. And then, the Lauderdale game identified a couple of things as well, and really sort of cultural's probably the wrong word, but just that understanding, with so many young guys in our team, understanding what it takes to be a hardened senior footy team, and so that's what we've been working on, and just building that consistency and hardness, and not allowing the opposition to have moments where it's easy for them. And we had that patch where we lost 4 games. In each of those games we played some really good footy at times, but particularly the Lonnie, Clarence and Lauderdale games, it was just a few minutes here and there, a couple of stretches in the game that cost us. And so in the end, it's probably good that happened to us early in the season and we could identify it. And the last 2 weeks leading into this were pleasing with the progress we made, but we also understood where those 2 teams were on the ladder. Even though both teams have got some talent, we were looking forward to really testing out the progress we'd made against one of the teams up the other end of the ladder. And Clarence, I really admire the way they've gone about their footy this year, and they've built a team with some really good experience. I sort of looked through their team list today, and half their team is 25 and over. And it's sort of your old school state league team. Back when I started playing, that's what it was like. And that's probably one of the reasons that they've been so good at sticking in contests this year. I really like the way they played, and I said last week there's a little bit of Sydney about the way they go about it. And so for us to really take them on in that physical side of the game and beat them in that was really pleasing for me. And I was pretty just admired the way the guys went about it. But at the same time, I just said, look, it's one game, and where the areas that we've needed to improve on are really fundamental to being a good Aussie Rules footy team. So we can't afford to take a step back in those areas. And Launceston next week, I know they lost today, but sometimes that just makes an opponent even more dangerous. And so that's going to be a really big game, and we just need to take another step forward.
Touched on it before with the defensive efforts today. It kept Clarence to only the 3 goals, and they only came in one patch late in the second term. You must be really pleased with the way, I suppose, the likes of a Josh Arnold and Daniel Joseph can really, I suppose, lead that defensive unit that have been pretty good for most of the year. Yeah,
and I think the thing about our defensive unit is, of our back 7, each week 4 or 5 of them are teenagers. So we're asking a lot of some young guys, and today it was 4, but Jack Stevenson, the way he puts his body on the line is so impressive. Harrison Gunther is a really good leader for us back there, even though he's just turned 19. Aaron Brennan, his one-on-one contest work was really good there today. So those guys are standing up and doing an excellent job for us. And again, Joel Millhouse, is another guy who I haven't really mentioned much this year, and he had a bit of a down patch. And he only stayed in the team because we had a late withdrawal last week, but he really stood up, and again today he stood up, and it's so pleasing to see these guys. Like, you can get frustrated with them, and then you go, hang on, he's 17 years of age, and but the story for him is the same as everyone. Like, you've just got to keep being at that level. We just don't want to get to the end of the season and everyone go, oh, they were a young team and that's why they didn't quite make it. Like, we want to be a really good team, and the guys have an appetite for that as well, but it's not easy. You got to be prepared to work hard, minute after minute, quarter after quarter, week after week. And as much as that's a cliche, that's footy. It's a tough game, and tough mentally as much as physically. So it was pleasing today to see them respond to a challenge against a really experienced team. And we'll keep working on it, and hopefully we can make that a very consistent trademark of ours, and then we give us a chance in any game.
Touched on it earlier in the year that when you first arrived at the club, there was a clear message that Clarence is the team that you really need to beat as a Glenorchy footy club. Touched on during the week as well on social media, and then speaking with Sticks before, that Danny Ling coming down to the club this week was a lot made of coming up against, I guess, the traditional rival this weekend, because it certainly looked like the boys attacked the game with a fair bit of vigour and a fair bit of hunger. Yeah,
and it complemented what we've been doing. Really good footy teams, they play with hunger and vigour each week. And so that's what we've been working on. But Danny it was a really good insight into, some of the stuff when he was playing and where they'd had to come from. And it was funny, it was a little bit of a similar story, in that at the time, like they'd, Clarence were the team to beat, and they'd had to change some things and, stuff they did off the field with their training and everything to try and catch Clarence and match that. And so there were some parallels between what we've been doing over the last few weeks as well. I think it was good for the guys just to hear that and hear a couple of stories as well from back then. The game was a little bit different.
Yeah.
The physicality was a little bit different, and a little less legal. But that was footy back then, and so it was good. It was good just to get a little bit of a different perspective. And when Danny talks, people listen. And he's been great. He's one of our football directors, and he's been invaluable to me as a coach. He has a way of putting things into perspective, very easily, making it very, opening up your eyes to new things. So, I've been really fortunate to work with Danny.
And obviously, big challenge next week against Launceston. Out of today's game, any injury concerns at all?
Jai Bierman got a head knock, so we'll just wait and see what happens with him. As far as I know, I don't think there was anything else, but as always, we sort of wait. Yeah, you give it a couple of days. But Launceston next week, it's a big challenge. They've got a lot of talent. I got asked earlier in the year when we're 4-0, are you the best team in the comp? And I said at the time, no, there's 4 really good teams in the comp, and now you can add Lauderdale into that equation as well. They've turned their season around, and just because Lonnie have had a couple of losses, we had 4 losses in a row, and I think some people started to write us off. But sometimes the difference between winning and losing isn't big, and things can turn around pretty quick. And so we need to, Clarence came into this game on a high, and we came in really with something to prove after the last time we played against them. And that was clearly our worst pressure game of the year. And once I go through the stats and get the final stats, this will be close to our best pressure game of the year, and that was the difference. So next week we're going to have a Launceston team coming in who have a real point to prove. We've got to make sure we don't go in on